If you are watching this video, I suspect you can't sleep. And after some tossing and turning in bed, that copy of Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit has been calling to you from your dusty, unused bookshelf. Now, if I am describing your situation, or you are finding yourself only a few mere minutes away from wandering around in the dead of night, talking to yourself about epistemology, then I hope that this video may be of some assistance to you and the beginning of your late night philosophical journey. To begin, we must recognize that, unlike your parents, who have told you over and over again that nothing good can happen after 9 p.m., it turns out that most honest, authentic thinking can only really begin after the wee hours of 1 a.m. A little bit of delirium goes a long way in slowly restoring the strangeness of the surrounding world. However, before you pick up a Socratic reader and start reciting Parmenides' poem of being to all your friends who I am sure are very amused at your next dinner party, I would advise you to try your best to skip almost 90% of all forewords or so-called introductions you find in your books. It can be helpful to have some grounding before reading a complicated text, but one should be very wary of taking any so-called easy route through a philosophy. It turns out that no matter how many School of Life videos you half-watched, or third-rate journal entries you discovered on JSTOR and pretend to read, the only real way through a book is to struggle through it. Now, I will allow one concession for those of you who like to bull with the bumpers up. One should probably obtain at some point a very well-written and reputable history of philosophy, or skim through several of the articles found on the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. I will allow you this cheat if you pinky promise me that you will not trust these entries as the absolute final reading of a book and then spew it to anybody who will listen to you at your local bus stop. Some helpful tools along the way, apart from this history of philosophy that you, again, will promise me is not the final reading of the text, are pens. Now, the pen should be used to annotate. I'm sorry, but you should actually write in a philosophy book. The problem is that most people seemingly think that annotations are simply just underlying anything that is mildly interesting. Now, you need to take a long look in the mirror. You're probably not going to read this book over and over and over again. So instead, perhaps use the space between pages to write scathing ad hominem about the author and his failed love life. This will at least be amusing and more helpful to you than arbitrarily underlying every little word. If you do like the challenge of rereading the text, know that at least in your first go-around, many questions are going to appear and your understanding will be foggy at some points. This is a good thing. Spewing back Segru lectures, on the other hand, to all your unimpressed peers will only get you so far. And so it may actually be fine for you to not completely 100% understand everything the author is saying. This quick tip allows you to zone out a bit. Now, certain academic types are already trying to tar and feather me as I speak. But I assure you, I have a very effective lock on my door, and not every word is the world's most important thing to ponder. Wasting your time on a line Spinoza wrote while likely stoned out of his mind doesn't get you anywhere. Look out instead for the sentences that actually resemble discernible English, or at the very least, have a repetition of a theme to them. Much like chess, learning 30 lines of the esoteric Najdorf really doesn't help you when you forget how the knight moves. And so, in the same way, you should probably shoot for the main idea rather than the nuances of the 51st distinction made on page 700. Now, a great philosopher once said, "The real philosopher has no time for philosophy." And this is a really pithy way of saying that true philosophy has to begin with living life, and that any reading of philosophy should always be held to the bar and scrutiny of real life. I'm sure that terribly long paper on the merits of utilitarianism amongst colonies of tree frogs has really gripped you, and I'm not going to stop you from reading it. But please, always ask the question, does this make sense? Have I actually experienced this? In particular, you may find that philosophers, particularly of the continental tradition, are eager to pass off their own emo poetry as some deep metaphysical insight. Always ask, am I reading the slightly amusing insights of a German from the 1800s? Or does this actually correspond to some kind of lived experience? Now, I can already hear the snickering of some at me for assuming that there is such a thing as lived reality to base judgment off of. And to you, I can only hope that you write papers more interesting than the math equations offered by your favorite analytical thinker. My final piece of advice admittedly comes from my own philosophical bias, but I genuinely think that you should be looking for a few things when you begin this journey of suffering from insomnia due to reading way too much late Wittgenstein. Philosophy for too long has wobbled between the realm of the dry, unapplied academic and the corporately friendly self-help video. What you are beginning, then, is not a party trick. It is a genuine search, one that you have to take at least slightly seriously, even if the age and tone of this video is nothing but ironic humor. Philosophy should not be informative. It should be transformative. For restoring the strangeness to ourselves and the world around us is the real key that we may unlock the door to look into the abyss of being. Or you could just read more Aristotle and get back to me and tell me how he knows everything. I don't know, man. But if you use the words act and potency in your daily conversation with your peers, like, subscribe, and wander around your local parking garage.